Unfortunately, it is not of them I have to speak, but of her who brought me into the world through the hole in her arse, if my memory is correct. First taste of the shit. So I shall only add that every 100 years or so I stop to rest my legs, the good one as well as the bad, and not only my legs, not only my legs. I didn't properly speaking get down off the machine. I remained astride it, my feet on the ground, my arms on the handlebars, my head on my arms. And I waited until I felt better. But before I leave this earthly paradise suspended between the mountains and the sea, sheltered from certain winds and exposed to all that austere vents, in the way of scents and languors on this accursed country, it would ill become me not to mention the awful cries of the corn crakes that run in the corn in the meadows, all the short summer night long, dinning their rattles, and this enables me what is more to know when that unreal journey began, the second last but one of a form fading among fading forms, in which I here declare without further ado to have begun in the second or third week of June. At the moment that is to say most painful of all, when over what is called our hemisphere the sun is at its pitiless most, and the Arctic radiance comes pissing on our midnights, it is then the corn crakes are heard. My mother never refused to see me, that is, she never refused to receive me, for it was many a long day since she had seen anything at all. I shall try and speak calmly. We were so old, she and I, she had had me so young, that we were like a couple of old cronies, sexless, unrelated, with the same memories, the same rancors, the same expectations. She never called me son, fortunately. I couldn't have borne it, but Dan. I don't know why. My name is not Dan. Dan was my father's name, perhaps. Yes, perhaps she took me for my father. I took her for my mother, and she took me for my father. Dan, you remember the day I saved the swallow? Dan, you remember the day you buried the ring? I remembered. I mean, I knew more or less what she was talking about, and if I hadn't always taken part personally in the scene she evoked, it was just as if I had. I called her Mag when I had to call her something. And I called her Mag because for me, without my knowing why, the letter G abolished the syllable ma. And as it were, spat on it, better than any other letter that would have done. And at the same time, I satisfied a deep and doubtless unacknowledged need, the need to have a ma, that is a mother, and to proclaim it audibly. For before you say Mag, you say ma, inevitably. And da, in my part of the world, means father. Besides, for me, the question did not arise at the period I'm worming into now. I mean the question of whether to call her Ma, Mag, or the Countess Kaka, she having for countless years been as deaf as a post. I think she was quite incontinent, both of feces and water, but a kind of prudishness made us avoid the subject when we met, and I could never be certain of it. In any case, it can't have amounted to much, a few niggardly wetted goat droppings every 2 or 3 days. The room smelt of ammonia, not merely of ammonia, but of ammonia. She knew it was me by my smell. Her shrunken, hairy old face lit up. She was happy to smell me. She jabbered away with a rattle of dentures and most of the time didn't realize what she was saying. Anyone but myself would have been lost in this clattering gabble, which can only have stopped during her brief instance of unconsciousness. In any case, I didn't come to listen to her. I got into communication with her by knocking on her skull. 1 knock meant yes, 2 no, 3 I don't know, 4 money, 5 goodbye. I was hard put to ram this code into her ruined and frantic understanding, but I did it in the end. That she should confuse yes, no, I don't know, and goodbye was all the same to me. I confused them myself. But that she should associate the 4 knocks with anything but money was something to be avoided at all costs. During the period of training, therefore, at the same time as I administered the 4 knocks on her skull, I stuck a banknote under her nose or in her mouth. In the innocence of my heart, for she seemed to have lost, if not absolutely all notion of mensuration, at least the faculty of counting beyond 2. It was too far for her. Yes, the distance was too great from 1 to 4. By the time she came to the 4th knock, she imagined she was only at the 2nd, the first 2 having been erased from her memory, as completely as if they had never been felt, though I don't quite see how something never felt can be erased from the memory, and yet it is a common occurrence. She must have thought I was saying no to her all the time, whereas nothing was further from my purpose. Enlightened by these considerations, I looked for and finally found a more effective means of putting the idea of money into her head. This consisted in replacing the 4 knocks of my index knuckle by 1 or more, according to my needs, thumps of the fist on her skull. That she understood. In any case, I didn't come for money. I took her money, but I didn't come for that. My mother. I don't think too harshly of her. I know she did all she could not to have me, except, of course, the one thing, and if she never succeeded in getting me unstuck, it was that fate had earmarked me for less compassionate sewers. But it was well meant, and that's enough for me. No, it is not enough for me, but I give her credit, though she is my mother, for what she tried to do for me. And I forgive her for having jostled me a little in the first months and spoiled the only just endurable period of my enormous history. And I also give her credit for not having done it again, thanks to me, or for having stopped in time when she did. And if ever I'm reduced to looking for a meaning to my life, you can never tell. It's in that old mess I'll stick my nose to begin with, the mess of that poor old uniparous whore and myself, the last of my foul brood, neither man nor beast. I should add, before I get down to the facts you'd swear they were facts of that distant summer afternoon, that with this deaf-blind, impotent, mad old woman who called me Dan and whom I called Mag, and with her alone, No, I can't say it. That is to say, I could say it, but I won't say it. Yes, I could say it easily because it wouldn't be true. What did I see of her? A head always, the hands sometimes, the arms rarely. A head always, veiled with hair, wrinkles, filth, slobber. A head that darkened the air. Not that seeing matters, but it's something to go on with. It was I who took the key from under the pillow, who took the money out of the drawer, who put the key back under the pillow. But I didn't come for money. I think there was a woman who came each week. Once I touched with my lips, vaguely, hastily, that little gray, wizened pair. Pah! Did that please her? I don't know. Her babble stopped for a second, then began again. Perhaps she said to herself, Pah! I smelt a terrible smell. Must have come from the bowels. Odor of antiquity. Oh, I'm not criticizing her. I don't diffuse the perfumes of Araby myself. Shall I describe the room? No. I shall have occasion to do so later, perhaps, when I seek refuge there. Bet to the world, all shame drunk, my prick in my rectum. Who knows? Good. Now that we know where we're going, let's go there. It's so nice to know where you're going in the early stages. It almost rids you of the wish to go there. I was distraught, who am so seldom distraught, from what should I be distraught, and as to my motions, even more uncertain than usual. The night must have tired me, at least weakened me, and the sun, hoisting itself higher and higher in the east, it poisoned me while I slept. I ought to have put the bulk of the rock between it and me before closing my eyes. I confuse east and west. The poles, too. I invert them readily. I was out of sorts. They are deep, my sorts, a deep dish. A deep ditch, and I'm not often out of them. That's why I mention it. Nevertheless, I covered several miles and found myself under the ramparts. There I dismounted in compliance with the regulations. Yes, cyclists entering and leaving town are required by the police to dismount, cars to go into bottom gear, and horse-drawn vehicles to slow down to a walk. The reason for this regulation is, I think, this: that the ways into and, of course, out of this town are narrow and darkened by enormous vaults, without exception. It is a good rule, and I observe it religiously, in spite of the difficulty I have in advancing on my crutches, pushing my bicycle at the same time. I managed somehow, being ingenious. Thus we cleared these difficult straits, my bicycle and I together. But a little further on I heard myself hailed. I raised my head and saw a policeman. Elliptically speaking, for it was only later, by way of induction or deduction, I forget which, that I knew what it was. What are you doing there? He said. I'm used to that question. I understood it immediately. Resting, I said. Resting, he said. Resting, I said. Will you answer my question? He cried. So it always is when I'm reduced to confabulation. I honestly believe I've answered the question I am asked, and in reality I do nothing of the kind. I won't reconstruct the conversation in all its meanderings. It ended in my understanding that my way of resting, my attitude when at rest, astride my bicycle, my arms on the handlebars, my head on my arms, was a violation of I don't know what, public order, public decency. Modestly, I pointed to my crutches and ventured one or two noises regarding my infirmity, which obliged me to rest as I could rather than as I should. But there are not two laws. That was the next thing I thought I understood. Not two laws, one for the healthy, another for the sick. but one only to which all must bow, rich and poor, young and old, happy and sad. He was eloquent. I pointed out that I was not sad. That was a mistake. Your papers, he said. I knew it a moment later. Not at all, I said, not at all. Your papers, he cried. Ah, my papers. Now, the only papers I carry with me are bits of newspaper to wipe myself, you understand, when I have a stool. Oh, I don't say I wipe myself every time I have a stool, no, but I like to be in a position to do so if I have to. Nothing strange about that, it seems to me. In a panic, I took this paper from my pocket and thrust it under his nose. The weather was fine. We took the little side streets, quiet, sunlit, I springing along between my crutches, he pushing my bicycle with the tips of his white gloved fingers. I didn't feel unhappy. I stopped a moment. I made so bold to lift my hand and touch the crown of my hat. It was scorching. I felt the faces turning to look after us, calm faces and joyful faces, faces of men, of women, and of children. I seemed to hear at a certain moment a distant music. I stopped, the better to listen. Go on, he said. Listen, I said. Get on, he said. I wasn't allowed to listen to the music. It might have drawn a crowd. He gave me a shove. I had been touched. Oh, not my skin, but nonetheless my skin had felt it. It had felt a man's hard fist through its coverings. While still putting my best foot foremost, I gave myself up to that golden moment, as if I had been someone else. It was the hour of rest, the forenoon's toil ended, the afternoons to come. The wisest, perhaps, lying in the squares or sitting in their doorsteps, were savoring its languid ending, forgetful of recent cares, indifferent to those at hand. Others, on the contrary, were using it to hatch their plans, their heads in their hands. Was there one among them to put himself in my place, to feel how removed I was? Then from him I seemed to be. And in that remove, what strain as of hawsers about to snap? It's possible. Yes, I was straining towards those spurious deeps, their lying promise of gravity and peace. From all my old poisons I struggled towards them, safely bound, under the blue sky, under the watchful gaze. Forgetful of my mother, set free from the act, merged in this alien hour, saying, respite, respite. At the police station I was hailed before a very strange official dressed in plain clothes and his shirt sleeves. He was sprawling in an armchair, his feet on his desk, a straw hat on his head, and protruding from his mouth a thin, flexible object I could not identify. I had time to become aware of these details before he dismissed me. He listened to his subordinate's report and then began to interrogate me in a tone which, from the point of view of civility, left increasingly to be desired, in my opinion. Between his questions and my answers, I mean those deserving of consideration, the intervals were more or less long and turbulent. I am so little used to being asked anything that when I am asked something, I take some time to know what. And the mistake I make then is this, that instead of quietly reflecting on what I have just heard and heard distinctly, not being hard of hearing, in spite of all I have heard, I hasten to answer blindly, fearing perhaps lest my silence fan their anger to fury. I am full of fear. I've gone in fear all my life, in fear of blows, insults, abuse. These I can easily bear, but I could never get used to blows. It's strange. Even spits, still pain me, but they have only to be a little gentle. I mean, refrain from hitting me, and I seldom fail to give satisfaction in the long run. Now the sergeant, content to threaten me with a cylindrical ruler, was little by little rewarded for his pains by the discovery that I had no papers in the sense this word had a sense for him, nor any occupation, nor any domicile, that my surname escaped me for the moment, and that I was on my way to my mother, whose charity kept me dying. As to her address, I was in the dark, but knew how to get there, even in the dark. The district? By the shambles, Your Honor. For from my mother's room, through the closed windows, I had heard, stilling her chatter, the bellowing of the cattle, that violent, raucous, tremulous bellowing, not of the pastures, but of the towns, their shambles and cattle markets. Yes, after all, I had perhaps gone too far in saying that my mother lived near the shambles. It could equally well have been the cattle market near which she lived. Never mind, said the sergeant, it's the same district. I took advantage of the silence which followed these kind words to turn towards the window, blindly or nearly, for I had closed my eyes, proffering to that blandness of blue and gold my face and neck alone, and my mind empty too, or nearly, for I must have been wondering if I did not feel like sitting down after such a long time standing, and remembering what I had learnt in that connection, namely that the sitting posture was not for me any more because of my short stiff leg, and that there were only two postures for me anymore, the vertical, drooping between my crutches, sleeping on my feet, and the horizontal, down on the ground. And yet the desire to sit down came upon me from time to time, back upon me from a vanished world, and I did not always resist it, forewarned though I was. Yes, my mind felt it surely, this tiny sediment, incomprehensibly stirring like grit at the bottom of a puddle, while on my face, and great big Adam's apple, the air of summer weighed, and the splendid summer sky. And suddenly I remembered my name. Molloy! My name is Molloy, I cried, all of a sudden. Now I remember. Now I remember. Nothing compelled me to give this information, but I gave it, hoping to please, I suppose. They let me my hat on. They let me keep my hat on. I don't know why. Is it your mother's name? Said the sergeant. It must have been a sergeant. Molloy, I cried. My name is Molloy. Is that your mother's name? Said the sergeant. What? I said. Your name is Molloy, said the sergeant. Yes, I said. Now I remember. And your mother? Said the sergeant. I didn't follow. Is your mother's name Molloy too? Said the sergeant. I thought it over. Your mother, said the sergeant. Is your mother's... Let me think, I cried. At least I imagine that's how it was. Take your time, said the sergeant. Was mother's name Molloy? Very likely. Her name must be Molloy too, I said. They took me away to the guard room, I suppose, and there I was told to sit down. I must have tried to explain. I won't go into it. I obtained permission, if not to lie down on a bench, at least to remain standing, propped against the wall. The room was dark and full of people hastening to and fro, malefactors, policemen, lawyers, priests, and journalists, I suppose. All that made a dark forms crowding in a dark place. They paid no attention to me, and I repaid the compliment. Then how could I know they were paying no attention to me, and how could I repay the compliment since they were paying no attention to me? Since they were paying no attention to me, I don't know. I knew it and I did it. That's all I know. But suddenly a woman rose up before me, a big fat woman dressed in black, or rather in mauve. I still wonder today if it wasn't the social worker. She was holding out to me on an odd saucer a mug full of grayish concoction which must have been green tea with saccharin and powdered milk. Nor was that all, for between mug and saucer a thick slab of dry bread was precariously lodged, so that I began to say in a kind of anguish, "It's going to fall. It's going to fall," as if it mattered whether it fell or not. A moment later, I myself was holding in my trembling hands this little pile of tottering disparates, in which the hard, the liquid, and the soft were joined, without understanding how the transfer had been effected. Let me tell you this. When social workers offer you free, gratis, and for nothing, something to hinder you from swooning, which with them is an obsession, it is useless to recoil. They will pursue you to the ends of the earth, the vomitory in their hands. The Salvation Army is no better. Against the charitable gesture there is no defense that I know of. You sink your head, you put out your hands, all trembling and twined together, and you say, "Thank you. Thank you, lady. Thank you, kind lady." To him who has nothing, it is forbidden not to relish filth. The liquid overflowed, the mug rocked with a noise of chattering teeth. Not mine, I had none. And the sodden bread sagged more and more, until, panic-stricken, I flung it all far from me. I did not let it fall, no, but with a convulsive thrust of both my hands I threw it to the ground, where it smashed to smithereens, or against the wall, far from me, with all my strength. I will not tell what followed, for I am weary of this place. I want to go. It was late afternoon when they told me I could go. I was advised to behave better in the future, conscious of my wrongs, knowing now the reasons for my arrest, alive to my irregular situation as revealed by the inquiry. I was surprised to find myself so soon at freedom once again, if that is what it was, unpenalized. Had I, without my knowledge, a friend at court? Had I, without knowing it, favorably impressed the sergeant? Had they succeeded in finding my mother and obtaining from her or from the neighbors partial confirmation of my statements? Were they of the opinion that it was useless to prosecute me? To apply the letter of the law to a creature like me is not an easy matter. It can be done, but reason is against it. It is better to leave things to the police. I don't know. If it is unlawful to be without papers, why did they not insist on my getting them? Because that cost money and I had none? But in that case, could they not have appropriated my bicycle? Probably not without a court order. All that is incomprehensible. What is certain is this, that I never rested in that way again, my feet obscenely resting on the earth, my arms on the handlebars, and on my arms my head, rocking and abandoned. It is indeed a deplorable sight, a deplorable example for the people who so need to be encouraged in their bitter toil, and to have before their eyes manifestations of strength only, of courage and of joy, without which they might collapse at the end of the day and roll on the ground. I have only to be told what good behavior is, and I am well behaved, within the limits of my physical possibilities. And so I've never ceased to improve from this point of view, for I used to be intelligent and quick. And as far as goodwill is concerned, I had it to overflowing, the exasperated goodwill of the over-anxious, so that my repertory of permitted attitudes has never ceased to grow from my first steps until my last, executed last year. And if I have always behaved like a pig, the fault lies not with me, but with my superiors, who corrected me only on points of detail instead of showing me the essence of the system. It's fantastic. After the manner of the great English schools and the guiding principles of good manners, and how to proceed without going wrong from the former to the latter, and how to trace back to its ultimate source a given comportment. For that would have allowed me, before parading in public certain habits such as the finger in the nose, the scratching of the balls, digital emunction, and the peripatetic piss, to refer them to the first rules of a reasoned theory. On this subject, I had only negative and empirical notions, which means that I was in the dark most of the time, and all the more completely as a lifetime of observations had left me doubting the possibility of systematic decorum, even within a limited area. But it is only since I have ceased to live that I think of these things and the other things. It is in the tranquility of decomposition that I remember the long confused emotion which was my life, and that I judge it as it is said that God will judge me, and with no less impertinence. To decompose is to live too, I know, don't torment me, but one sometimes forgets. And of that life too I shall tell you perhaps one day, the day I know that when I thought I knew, I was merely existing, and that passion without form or stations will have devoured me down to the rotting flesh itself, and that when I know that I know nothing, am only crying out as I have always cried out, more or less piercingly, more or less openly. I'm going to reread that. To decompose is to live too. I know, don't torment me, but one sometimes forgets. And of that life too I shall tell you perhaps one day, the day I know that when I thought I knew, I was merely existing, and that passion without form or stations will have devoured me down to the rotting flesh itself, and that when I know nothing, I'm only crying out as I have always cried out, more or less piercingly, more or less openly. Let me cry out then. It's said to be good for you. Yes, let me cry out this time, then another time perhaps, then perhaps a last time. Cry out that the declining sun fell full on the white wall of the barracks. It was like being in China. A confused shadow was cast. It was I and my bicycle. I began to play, gesticulating, waving my hat, moving my bicycle to and fro before me, blowing the horn, watching the wall. They were watching me through the bars. I felt their eyes upon me. The policeman on guard at the door told me to go away. He needn't have. I was calm again. The shadow in the end is no better than the substance. I asked the man to help me, to have pity on me. He didn't understand. I thought of the food I had refused. I took a pebble from my pocket and sucked it. It was smooth from having been sucked so long by me and beaten by the storm. A little pebble in your mouth, round and smooth, appeases, soothes, makes you forget your hunger, forget your thirst.